Oh, darn it.
Sí, 60 porcentaje, 60%. Well, yeah, that would be really awesome. So we're gonna cross our fingers and knock on wood and do all the other superstitious things. Ojalá que llueva. Hopefully it will rain. Ojalá, hopefully. Ojalá que llueva. Hopefully it will rain. Bien, 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 bien. Aquí viene Trish. Here comes Trish. Probably we have just a couple others coming on in soon. A ver. And I have a couple people that I know are still on vacation as well. So we will start. Oh, son las 9:30. Son las 9:30. Vamos a empezar. Vamos a empezar. Muy buenos días. ¿Cómo están ustedes?
Estás bien.
Bien, gracias.
Estoy bien.
Lunes. Es lunes, pero sí, es lunes. Aquí viene Jeff. Here comes Jeff. Make sure I get him in before we properly start. We're going to take a look at a couple of fun videos. We're going to look at one video for openers just to get our brains warmed up. It is a great little video with con nuestra amiga Laura. You will notice some reflexive verbs, and of course these reflexives are going to come and go because sometimes you need them, sometimes you don't. So we're going to open with a beach video with her. She'll have some reflexives and some not. She'll be talking about her habits, hábitos, what she does when she does this particular activity. So I want you to kind of pay attention to that. When we're done with that little opening video, which is going to be super short, we're going to talk a little bit about parecerse and irse. We're going to have those prompts. So I'm going to show you what the homework paper looked like so that you can grab it if you printed it out. Yes, it says prompts for 8, 9, and 9 de agosto. So the prompt looks like that. If you're going to pull up a second screen, that is the file you're looking for. If you printed it out, that is what it looks like, and maybe it's sitting on the desk under your bills or, you know, wherever. Does that happen on your desk? It happens on my desk, yes. Felicitaciones, congratulations. Tú eres normal. You are normal if you do that. Okay. So I'm going to pull that off just so you know which paper you are looking for. And we're going to have a fun little video first. After that, we're going to practice with parecerse and irse. We will not do the practice until we field any potential questions you may have, because I don't like to, you know, throw you out in the water and just say swim. So again, every week we want to take a couple of 1 or 2 reflexive verbs and practice using them. That's what the prompts are going to be for. And now I'm going to get my proper screen set up so we can let you listen. Okay. It's amazing how many buttons I gotta finagle with. Aquí vamos, here we go. And you'll see at the bottom, we've already got this because actually the first second may have cut some of this off. Tienes 3 segundos para adivinar dónde estamos. Adivinar es to guess. Wow, a really old usage of English. If you divine something, you're guessing it. Yeah, that's a really pretty archaic usage of that word divine as a verb. Adivinar es to guess. Tienes 3 segundos para adivinar dónde estamos.
Segundos para adivinar dónde estamos. 3, 2, 1. ¡Chachán! Estamos en la playa. Mira, ¿ves? Aquí está la playa. Hemos venido a tener un relajante día de playa. Lo primero que hago cuando vengo a la playa es tender la toalla en el suelo.
Y tender is to spread out, to lay out. You know, if it's tender la cama, it means you're making your bed. So tender, she's laying it out.
Normalmente la playa es de arena. Esta playa, como podéis
Normally, beaches have sand, but not here.
ver, es de piedras. Pueden estar muy bien para jugar y para hacer montañitas de piedras y tal. Está muy bien para jugar, pero para estar cómodamente tumbado en la playa no está tan bien. Con lo cual, según tiendo la toalla sobre las piedras, me aseguro de que no haya ninguna piedra demasiado grande. Solo queremos piedras pequeñitas.
So she makes sure that there aren't great big rocks, but little ones underneath.
Porque si hay piedras grandes, se nos van a clavar en la espalda.
Because if they're big ones, they stick in your back. Clavar is to nail something and se van a clavar. Yeah, they're going to stick in your back.
Y no vamos a relajarnos, vamos a estar muy incómodos.
And no, she's relajarnos. Relajarnos es reflexivo. To relax oneself is reflexive. Relajarse.
Vale, intentad adivinar qué canción es esta. Dejadlo en un comentario. ¿Qué canción creéis que es? Ay, me encanta cantar villancicos en pleno verano. Hacia Belén va una burra, ring, ring, yo me remendaba, yo me remendé, yo me hice un remiendo, yo me lo quité. Aprecio el sonido de las olas del mar.
Olas are the waves on the sea.
Tomo el sol. Lo único que no me gusta de ponerme crema es que
Oh, ponerme crema. She's putting it on herself. Even though it's not clothing, if you put it on yourself, it's ponerse. And she's going to talk about it being sticky, pegajosa.
es muy pegajosa.
Sticky.
Yo la crema de sol me la suelo poner en casa y así cuando vengo a la playa ya la tengo puesta. Pero hoy no me la he puesto porque iba a venir a ver el amanecer. Pero me he quedado dormida y el sol ya está ahí arriba.
Yeah, basically, she just told you that she didn't usually puts it on at home, but she didn't today because she got up to watch the sunrise or sunset and, you know, already too late.
Cuando tengo mucho calor es justo en ese momento que voy corriendo al agua y me doy un baño en el mar. Depende de lo fría que esté el agua, tardo más o menos en entrar a bañarme. Si está muy fría, tardo bastante o no tardo nada y hago y la duración de mi baño, si el agua es del Océano Atlántico del Norte, entonces mi baño dura unos 15 segundos.
15 segundos es todo. She was showing you northern part of Spain. It gets quite cold there. And it doesn't, I don't think you ever get super, super hot temperatures except in very rare circumstances if you're up in the northwest corner of the country where she showed you
Si
on
el
the map.
agua es del Mediterráneo, entonces mi baño puede durar hasta 1 hora, 2 horas. vez salgo del agua en esta playa, una de las cosas que hago es exfoliarme los talones. Utilizo las piedras de esta playa que tienen poros, tienen agujeritos. Utilizo las piedras de esta playa para frotarme el talón y
Frotarme es scrub. Scrub myself. She does some exfoliating.
exfoliarlo. Es
Exfoliarlo.
una muy buena práctica. Voy a haceros una demostración, pero con las manos. Primero exfoliamos el pie contra la arena. Y luego lo frotamos contra la roca de nuestra elección. Otras cosas que hago en la playa son jugar con la arena. Vale, ¿qué creéis que he hecho? Al principio iba a ser un donut, pero luego me he dado cuenta de que también puede ser un salvavidas.
Salvavidas is ¿cómo se dice en inglés? You know, you throw it out to somebody who's drowning. Lifesaver. Yeah, those little donut things.
Pero prefiero un donut.
Bellas artes,
Y
fine
lo
arts.
más importante y gratificante, comer. El pelar requiere un arte que yo no tengo. No está tan dulce como pensaba.
Oh, and she used a past. It's not as sweet as I was thinking. She used pensar, como pensaba, as I was thinking. Oh, this thing is not as sweet as I was thinking it would be.
Me voy a limpiar el cuchillo y a lavarme las manos.
Lavarme las manos. I'm going to clean the knife and wash my hands.
También puedes leer un libro. Yo, en mi caso, como estoy de viaje, no tengo libros físicos, con lo cual leo en el móvil. Que por cierto, la semana pasada hicimos la primera reunión de nuestro club de lectura. Estáis más que invitados a venir. No se ve nada, pero estoy leyendo.
Okay, y eso es todo. And you know, you will typically mix and mix and mix those things, mix reflexives, mix non-reflexives. Es muy común. It is very common. That's what people do day in, day out. A ver, bueno, vamos a hablar un poquito de parecerse y irse. Irse y a ver. Bueno, parecerse, of course, means to look like. To look like somebody, right? In your family, most usually, but it could be people not in your family. It could, if you're lucky enough to look like somebody famous. So, you know, depende, it does depend. And we're going to see a little reminder here. I have mysteriously gotten rid of this one I should not have. We're going to show you before we go off to practice that parecerse is conjugated like this. Let's make this a little bit bigger, un poquito más grande. Parecerse is to look like somebody, but parecer is just without the se part, right? And the parecer by itself means to seem a certain way. Okay. It's often used in a question, ¿Cómo te parece? How does it seem to you? To ask if you want to do something when somebody asks you for confirmation. Okay. But reflexively, it will look like with these little in parentheses pronouns, right? Me parezco, te pareces, se parece, nos parecemos, os pareceis. We're not going to use se parecen, right? And conocer and parecer, get that yo form. It looks the same. The yo form is weird. It gets a ZCO, and that is a phonetic thing because it's a CER ending. So, me parezco, but tú pareces, te pareces, se parecen, nos parecemos, se parecen. And parecerse es muy común, right? We use this a lot. Las gemelas se parecen, twins, the twins look like each other. Las chicas se parecen, the girls look like each other. Or sometimes we tell who somebody looks like. And then when we talk about that somebody that they look like, you need the little in front of their name. So that kind of an expression with parecerse becomes like this. Carmen se parece a su hermana. Carmen looks like her sister. And the su hermana needs an a in front of it, right? Because who does she look like? Her sister. That's an object. And an object that is a human being that needs that little a personal. So it's important to have that little a word in there. Carmen se parece a su hermana. So that is how we use parecerse, right? And we're going to have, a ver, vamos a ver.
Marilyn,
Sí,
this is Cindy. I do have a really quick question on
Sí.
that.
dime.
So if you have to put the I in if it's a direct object, is that what it is?
Who is a human being, yes.
A human being.
Right.
Okay. And in one of mine, I tried to say, my brother, mi hermano, say, parece a mí, looks like me. Is that right? And then I added to it, and my mother. I'm having trouble with describing me and my mother.
A mí y a mi mamá.
So it's me for both of them, me and my.
Yes, okay, so the little difference there. Oh, I see what you are saying. Sí. Momentito. Quick thing. And really, when you say something like that, let me get a little screen up so you'll see what it looks like. So everybody can see what it looks like because, Monday morning, our brain's always working, not always. Mine certainly needs a couple cups of coffee. Mi hermano, a ver, ¿dónde está? Mi hermano se parece a mí, and notice it gets an accent mark. Now, it doesn't sound any different than this other me. A mí y a mi mamá. Or a mí y a mi madre. And this me sounds exactly like this me. They don't sound any different, but one gets an accent mark because when you're talking about me, the human being, after a preposition, a is a preposition, then we use me. We wouldn't say a yo, we would say a mí. Okay, after the word a, we cannot use yo, it has to be a mí. Me. And the me with mi mamá no longer means me, the person, it means my. And that me means my mom or mi madre, a mi madre, right? That is how that works. Sí, ¿está bien? We good on that?
Está bien, gracias.
De nada, es un placer. That is a pleasure. Okay, so Lo que pasa es que what's happening is we're going to do some practice first with this parecer half, the top half. We're not going to go to the bottom half yet. I'm going to send you off into smaller groups to practice about who people look like, parecerse. So I want you to talk about who you look like, right? I would say, me parezco a mi madre y a mi padre. Me parezco a mis padres. I look like my parents. Talk about other people in your family who look like, you know, somebody. And then maybe have some fun with talking about who you do not look like. Por ejemplo, mi esposo no se parece a George Clooney. Okay. Something that, yeah, pero no me importa, but it doesn't matter to me, pero no me importa, but have some fun, talk about maybe who you don't look like, and you can be kind of silly with that one. I think you probably only need about 5 minutes to do that. 5 minutos, ¿verdad? Yeah, 5 minutos? Okay, a ver, let me get the breakout room set up. ¿Cuántos somos? Quizás 4. Maybe we can do 4 groups. Let's see how many. Yeah, you'll have about 3 people. Some of you will have only 2 per group, but that should work just fine. I'll give you about 5 minutes, 5 minutos. Está bien. Bien. Don't go down to the irse part yet, just parecerse. Okay, you'll need to find your botón, el botón que dice join. See? Prima, join. Hit join button. Okay, and Linda, just so you know, I had you up with Nora, but I switched Nora into a different group so that she wouldn't be hanging there on her own.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Marilyn?
Oh, I had Nora paired up with you, but I moved her into a different group. So
Okay,
you
good.
didn't
I'm
have to
sorry,
talk.
I-
It probably, no, I should have thought about that. Your throat probably doesn't feel good enough to talk a
I
lot
think
today.
I found an appointment in Mesa.
Ah,
That's a
awesome.
long drive, but it'll be worth it.
Get on the highway and do it.
Yeah,
I would. I
Yeah.
would. And if you got to leave now, go do it.
I'm gonna take it.
Go do it. Although, you know what, if you got it, you'll just probably have like a punk week. I mean, that's how
Mhm.
it's been for my
Yeah.
brother-in-law.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave now
Absolutely.
because
Go
I
nab
have to
that.
get ready.
Go nab that.
Okay, I'm
Go get it,
sorry.
girl. No, no, no. Do not apologize. Let me know how that turns out. Let me know.
Okay,
Okay, bien. Did I hear helicopters, Joe?
Yeah, that was a Chinook.
Hmm?
I said, yeah, that was a Chinook.
Oh. Okay. Hola, Mariana.
I pushed the button too fast. I went to,
That-
I missed my turn.
No
I
te
was gonna
preocupes.
say,
Don't worry about it.
no parezco a mí, Marilyn Monroe.
Ah!
No me parezco a mí, Marilyn Monroe.
No me parezco a Marilyn Monroe. Ni yo tampoco. Not me
Yeah.
either. And people always ask me if I'm named after her. My mother would be horrified, as she was a very
She-
straight-laced, good Catholic girl.
I had one of those too.
Oh my gosh, no. She was horrified that people implied that. I'm like, why are you getting offended?
Yeah. That's why I'm called Mary Ann. I'm like,
Yeah, sí. Ok, muy bien. Ok. ¿Y cómo fue? How was it? Sí. ¿Había dificultades o no?
no,
No.
no.
No? Okay. ¿Hay alguna pregunta? Is there any kind of a question that you might have had using that? No? Okay. Bien. All right.
I do,
Bueno.
I do,
Oh, sí, Diana, perdón.
I was talking about someone's eyes. Do you have to use the los ojos or do you just say tiene ojos marrones?
Tiene los ojos marrones.
You have to say los
Sí.
ojos.
Tiene los ojos marrones.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, you do need the los there. Tiene los ojos marrones. That
And-
is the word order they would expect.
And el caballo marrón,
Well, caballo would mean a horse, but it's,
um,
but if you mean
cabello.
cabello,
cabello.
there's one of our things with our vowels. Yeah, right. Caballo is very, very close to cabello. And cabello usually refer like, so you could say, tiene el pelo marrón.
El
Tiene el
pelo,
pelo
el
marrón. Or es moreno. Es moreno.
Oh, es
You can use that. Cabello can be used to talk about your hair color, but cabello generally refers to like your whole head of
your
hair.
whole head.
Yeah, it's kind of a more specific word than pelo. But certainly you can use it and certainly people will understand it. Okay. Bien. Otra pregunta. Any other question?
Oh, I have one question.
Sí, Cindy, dime.
This is back on the slides. You know,
Mhm.
we saw the one slide that had the rotten sandwich.
Ah, sí, claro.
And it said under, and its description was, esta comida parece podrida.
Podrida, rotten.
And the interpretation or the translation they gave was, it seems rotten to me.
Sí,
Where
sí.
does the to me come from?
Because I can tell you where that came from. A ver, let me put that on screen. Let me put that, that's because I took out one word because somebody last week did get confused. When we put that word back in, and I'll put the share screen on here, perdón, aquí. I had taken that out because somebody got a little bit confused with me having that word me, right? If it's me parezco, it means I look like. But if it's me parece, it means it seems a certain way to me.
Okay.
Right. So the me says to me, but if I take that out, just like that, there we go.
Okay.
Esta
Okay.
comida parece podrida. Yes, you could say that too. Perfectly okay. It seems rotten. And maybe not to me, but to anybody with two eyes who can see that that bread is cold.
Okay.
Bien.
Thank you.
De nada, de nada. Okay. Ir and irse. You also have this little video here on ir and irse. When you were watching that video, did you have any questions about that? Things that seemed a little, yeah. People often have questions about that. People often find that quite confusing. It doesn't need to be confusing. So I'm going to give you maybe a pointer, see if it helps, a couple of pointers. And we're going to hear some examples. We probably won't listen to all of the next video, but we're going to hear some examples so you can hear conversationally how it's used. So ir is to go. And if you just want to say, I'm going to a place, generally it's just going to be ir. But when ir is made reflexive, it can do a couple of things. One is that it can just make the action kind of more hasty. Okay? It's a real subtle thing. So it doesn't really change what the action is. It kind of changes the speed, right? The other thing that irse does is it adds in that idea in English of saying going away. Or a lot of times colloquially we'll say, oh, they're taking off really soon. And they're maybe not flying, but you know that they're getting out in a hurry. But so again, it's got that idea of doing something quickly. So, you know, we say things like they're taking off, they're getting out of here, they're going away. So the irse gives it that idea of going away. And often with irse, you may not have to name a place. So voy a la oficina, voy a ver a mi doctor, voy al parque con mi perro. I'm going to the park with my dog. But let's say you've been there with the doggy for a good 15, 20 minutes. He's done his business. We're all done with this, right? And now you want to say to somebody else who's also walking their doggy, you see each other every morning. Ya me voy. I'm going now. I'm taking off now. Ya me voy. Ya means just doing it now. Ya me voy. Ya me voy. And I don't name a place, right? Voy al parque con mi perro. Ya me voy. Now I'm taking off. I'm going back home is what you're telling people. So the me voy just says, I'm leaving. Sometimes people try to translate irse as leaving. Well, salir also means to leave, but irse is, you know, people use this all the time talking. So we're going to take a look at some examples, and I may have to hustle through a couple of examples. It's a long video. I will give you the link to this video, by the way, in the homework because it's long. And for some of you, he may sound like he's speaking pretty darn fast. In point of fact, he is not talking that fast, but to you, it may sound that way. So don't be distressed yet. I believe he's got, well, we're going to put in, no, we're not going to put in, I think he's going to put in subtitles where needed, and I will just stop. So he's going to give you not a grammar explanation like Kata did with the practiquemos. He's going to just show you how it's used. Okay.
Internet, a través de Skype, por ejemplo. Esto es genial, ¿no? Con
I got to get to his examples here.
experiencia o en el acento.
Aquí. He's talking about something else. We want to cut to the chase. Aquí.
Me encanta venir.
Okay, so listen to the ways he uses ir or irse. And I'll pause a few of his examples here.
Ir al parque cuando hace sol, cuando hace buen tiempo.
When it's sunny, when it's good weather, ir al parque, and just ir.
Y se está muy bien, muy bien, muy bien. Pero no me puedo quedar. Tengo que irme.
Tengo que irme. I need to take off. I need to get out of here. I need to, and we wouldn't say in this case in English, I have to go away. That would sound, I don't know, not wrong specifically, but kind of overdoing it. Tengo que irme. I have to take off. Tengo que irme a trabajar. I got to take off to go to work. Okay, a trabajar.
Tengo que irme a trabajar. Es una pena, pero
Es una pena. Wow, what a shame that I have to leave this nice park.
porque se está muy bien aquí, se está muy bien aquí.
It's really nice here.
Pero no me puedo quedar. Me tengo que ir, tengo que irme a trabajar.
Me tengo que ir, and he's using it as have to. Me tengo que ir. I have to take off. I have to get out of here. I have to leave.
Sí, tengo que irme a trabajar porque ya es tarde, ¿eh? Qué pena, me gustaría quedarme, ¿eh? Pero no. Tengo que irme a trabajar, Bueno, pues nada, me voy, uy, perdón. Me voy del parque.
And now, not I'm going to the park. Me voy del parque. I'm taking off from the park. Me voy del parque. I'm getting out of the park, is what he's saying. Me voy del parque. And that now tells the place he's leaving from. Okay? What his starting point is, and now he's going in the opposite direction. That's why he's using de. Means it's destination. I'm going to the place, right? But de means de tells me where I started before I left. Me voy del parque.
Me voy, sí, por aquí me voy a ir del parque. Me voy del parque, qué pena. Me voy a trabajar. Sí, por aquí, venga. Bueno, estoy caminando muy deprisa. Porque voy a la universidad, voy a trabajar.
I'm going to university and just voy. I'm going to the university. He's just telling his destination. Voy a trabajar, and there it's really not a destination so much as what in future he will be doing. Voy a trabajar. I'm going to work.
Pero llego tarde. Voy muy tarde. Me he despistado un poco.
So he's behind schedule here, right? Tarde is late.
Y voy tarde, pero sí, es por aquí. Y siempre voy a pie.
Oh, and boy can talk about how he's going. He's going on foot, yeah. Siempre voy a pie, incluso cuando voy tarde, even when, incluso cuando, including when, but we would say even when. I go late, right?
Incluso cuando voy tarde, siempre voy a pie. A ver, voy a trabajar, voy a la universidad, voy a dar clase y los estudiantes.
So here, no sé, because what he's going to do, the actual destination, where he's going to wind up.
Los estudiantes ya deben estar allí esperando. Oh, a ver. Sí, voy a la universidad. Mira la hora que es.
Mira, look at the time. In Spanish, nobody says look at the time. They say look at the hour that it is. Mira la hora que es. Mira la hora que es. Everybody from your mom to your grandma to your boss. Well, mira la hora que es. Look at the hour that it is. Look at the time.
Llevo esperando a mis estudiantes desde hace más de media hora y no vienen.
I'm waiting for my students to get here half an hour and they're not coming.
No vienen. Así que, bueno, pues me voy a ir.
Okay, half hour and the students didn't come. Me voy a ir. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to leave. He could have just said me voy. I'm taking off. I'm getting out of here.
¿Qué hago aquí? perdiendo el tiempo, ¿no? Me voy a ir a mi casa. Me voy a ir a mi casa ahora mismo. Porque aquí, ¿para qué? ¿Para qué voy a estar aquí? Para perder el tiempo, me voy. A ver.
Me voy. You know, and that's the way people say it. You will hear it just like that, like very unadorned. Me voy. I'm getting out of here. Me voy.
Bueno, ¿qué tal? ¿Habéis entendido la diferencia? Vamos a ver. Usamos el verbo ir cuando nos desplazamos hacia un lugar, hacia un objetivo. ¿Vale?
So we use ir when we move in space towards a destination of some kind. That's what he just said.
Estamos en A y nos desplazamos hacia B, ¿de acuerdo?
So when you've got a destination,
Este movimiento es ir, ¿de acuerdo? El objetivo puede ser un lugar físico
the objective can be a physical place,
o puede ser una acción.
or it can be an action like I'm going to work.
Voy a
I'm
trabajar,
going to give a class.
voy a comer,
going to
voy a
eat.
jugar con mis amigos.
I'm going to play with my
Y
friends.
el verbo irse expresa que abandonamos, que dejamos un lugar.
So he's saying that irse indicates that you abandon a place. And well, that sounds really kind of funky and again, archaic in English, but abandonamos. But it is that. It means getting out. Right? That you're leaving, you're getting out of there. You're not necessarily talking about a destination where you will wind up. You're just saying getting out.
Estamos en A y abandonamos ese lugar para ir hacia otro lugar. Lo importante es que si usamos irse, lo que estamos diciendo es que dejamos este lugar para ir a otro lugar. Entonces, recordad.
So irse is just saying you're leaving a place to go somewhere else. You don't, with irse, you don't necessarily know where that somewhere else is. With irse, the destination, the end point is not the point. The point is getting out. So that idea of abandonar is actually kind of useful, even though we don't say it in English, because the idea is irse's intent is to say, out of here, okay?
Ir. Nos movemos hacia un lugar o empezamos a hacer una acción, ¿vale? Irse. Abandonamos un lugar, dejamos un lugar. Vamos a ver otro ejemplo. Bueno, es la hora de la comida, es la hora del almuerzo.
Comida, they often use as lunch term, right? La comida, el almuerzo, they both mean lunch.
Y aquí en la calle hay un montón de gente.
There are a ton of people on the street here.
Un montón de gente comiendo, ¿no?
Ton of people eating.
Y me está dando hambre, así que voy a ir al supermercado a comer algo, sí,
I'm gonna go and here, I'm gonna go, what he's going to do, he needs to go. Voy a ir, I'm gonna go to the supermarket to eat something.
Voy a ir al supermercado o a un restaurante, no sé. O voy a un restaurante o voy al supermercado, pero tengo que comer algo porque...
Yeah, I'll either go to a restaurant or go to a supermarket.
Ver aquí toda esta
I have to
gente
eat.
comiendo, pues me ha dado un poco de hambre, sí. Voy al supermercado y voy a comprar algo para comer, sí. Allí hay un supermercado. Voy al supermercado, sí. Bueno, he venido aquí para estar tranquilo, pero hay un follón, hay un ruido. Vale, yo me
Wow, this place is noisy and loud.
voy,
yeah?
me voy de aquí porque hay mucho ruido, no puedo.
Me voy de aquí. I'm getting out of here. Me voy de aquí porque hay mucho ruido. I'm getting out of here because it's very noisy. And notice we're not talking about where you're going to wind up. You're just saying, I'm getting out. I'm leaving this place because it's super loud.
No puedo hablar, no puedo hablar.
You can't talk here.
Yo quería estar tranquilo y no puedo, así que me voy de aquí, me voy de este bar porque
I'm getting out of this bar. I'm getting out of this bar.
hay un ruido increíble, hay mucho ruido. Yo me voy porque aquí no se puede hablar. No me gustan los bares donde... Uf, qué ruido. Me voy porque aquí, en este bar, había un ruido. Uf, qué barbaridad. Me voy. No sé si os habéis dado cuenta de que al usar el verbo ir, normalmente usamos la preposición a. Decimos, voy...
So we often use a with ir because you're telling where you're going to or what action it is that you're going to do.
a trabajar, voy a mi casa, voy a la universidad, voy a la biblioteca. Decimos siempre o normalmente a.
Ah.
Voy a.
A is really what people expect to hear. And when he says normalmente, because there are instances where people may not use the a, but pretty limited, right? Usually a, and then the place it is where you're going to wind up, where your destination
¿De acuerdo?
is.
Pero con irse indicamos el lugar que dejamos, el lugar.
But irse really is talking more about where you're leaving, not where you're going to, but the place that you're leaving. So instead of you may, don't have to, but you may hear that word de.
Que abandonamos, y con irse usamos la preposición de. Me voy de aquí, me voy de casa, me voy de la oficina.
So you may hear de. I don't believe in your examples I put a de in, but you may hear a de if you're naming the place you're leaving from. So the de is indicating, oh, here's my starting point, and now I am leaving this place. Okay? So that's all we're going to watch for this. I'll give you the full video to watch later on. Okay? Because it is helpful to see the whole thing. But I'm going to pause here and bring back our phrases with ir and see what kind of questions you may have before I send you off to practice. Let me get my share screen up here again. We're going to go off now and practice irse. It means to go away. It gives more movement, more immediacy to that action. It means to get out, to take off, to split, right? Meaning you're leaving a place. And I tried to give you some easier prompts with this. So if you're talking about leaving your office or your home, ¿cuándo te vas? When do you take off? So give a time. This is another thing that you might use instead of de. You may give a time, me voy. Talking about people in your work or in your home. ¿Quién se va muy temprano? Who takes off really, really early? Who leaves? Who gets out of the house really super early? ¿Quién se va? Who goes? So you're going to be talking about somebody, not yourself here, right? That is why it's going to stay, se va. That one person, whoever it may be, se va. He or she goes, takes off. Talking about people in your work or home, ¿quiénes se van? Now we want to talk about more than one person. Who plural? ¿Quiénes? ¿Quiénes se van? ¿Quiénes se van muy tarde? Who takes off really late instead of temprano, early, tarde, late, right? Answer the question, ¿quieren ir ustedes al parque? And there it's not reflexive. We're naming a place we're going to. Al parque, al parque. So because we're naming that place we're going to, it's not a se or a me or a te, right? Just ir by itself, right?
Oh.
Okay. Okay. And talk about yourself. Like, where would you want to go if your AC stopped working at this time of year? Yeah.
A question on that.
Sí.
If I'm responding to that question, que usted ir a parque, I can make it urgent, right? And to make it, I said, sí, nos vamos ahora. We're going now.
Perfecto. Perfect.
Okay.
Because you're saying, oh,
Okay.
yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfecto. Perfect. So you use this for what you mean. You use it if you mean like doing it in a hurry, right? And
Okay.
if you're not necessarily naming where you're going to, but maybe talking about when, ahora is telling when, and it's saying, hey, yeah, let's go do it. Okay.
Okay.
When, muy bien. Hay otra pregunta. Is there another question before I send you off to practice? This one may take a little more than 5 minutes. Cindy, dime.
A quick question. So if you're describing an action, nos vamos tener, you're using an unconjugated verb to go have a beer. So you don't use a de, you don't use an I, you just use the tener to have.
To have a beer?
Uh-huh.
You won't use tener. That's why I was getting hung up. Tomar.
Oh,
It'll be
I-
tomar.
Wrong word, tomar.
It'll
Wrong
be
word.
because tener would indicate, I already got it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Okay, but
Vamos,
no de
vamos,
or of
vamos
that.
a tomar. AC is out. Let's go get a beer. Vamos a tomar una cerveza. Yeah, you might
Vamos
respond that.
a tomar. So you
Vamos
use.
a tomar.
Okay,
Vamos a tomar, because the tomar is indicating that you're going to ingest this.
okay.
¿Bien?
Thank you.
Dale,
Gracias.
magnífico. Ven.
I want to go with her.
Yo también, yo también. Yeah, me too. Yo también. It's a regular verb, so it's yo también. Okay, I'm going to give you a little more than 5 minutes because I think it'll take a little bit longer than that. You may have different options that you're talking about, different people that you're talking about, right? So we'll give you some time here and make sure you hit your join button. Oprimen el botón join. Excelente. Okay. ¿Y cómo fue todo? How did it all go?
Hmm.
Bien? Pretty good?
No,
No. No, okay. ¿Cuáles son las preguntas? What are your questions?
I have a question. For number 4, I said todos los días a 7, and the suggestion was that I should have put the time at the very end of the sentence as opposed to after todos los días. Would that matter?
Oh, no.
Hmm.
No, es flexible. That's very flexible. You can say every day at this time, or you can say every day I went someplace at this time. Either way is fine.
Okay,
No
Thank you.
importa, does not matter. You have a lot of flexibility with where you can put that.
okay, thank
Es
you.
buena pregunta. Sí, Marianne.
we had a lot of problems with we only got through the first one because there's a lot of discussion, but the first one is cuando te vas. And I said, me voy ahora, adios. I'm like, I'm out of here, I'm gone.
Sí.
But then, I don't know, Cindy, if you want to say what you had to say, or what are the other, somebody was saying, oh, you got to take off mute, Cindy. There you go.
And we, for that first one, had said similar things, but we were, me voy de mi casa a las 6 de la mañana. Because
Perfecto.
we were leaving from the house. We knew where we were leaving from.
Perfecto.
So we thought that
Okay.
made it a reflexive.
Perfecto. Perfecto.
So, but the question is, though, is that saying urgency? I guess that's the first video that we had today, that you had for homework. Is it expressing urgency, or is it just saying, oh, I'm leaving at 10, or, you know, I guess, could you do it either way?
Really, either way, it kind of implies both. But when you're saying de, you're telling where you're leaving from. And me voy
Okay.
is I'm taking off from this place. And you know, interestingly, if you use, instead of irse, if you use salir, with salir to leave,
Lago.
you
right.
similarly use de when you tell where your starting point is and you're getting out of that place. So that similarly uses de, because de means of or from, and that always tells your origin, your starting point. But you know, it means you're getting out of that place.
So would it be reflexive if you use salir?
No, salir is not reflexive.
Okay.
Salir, and actually this is a good point. Salir is another verb that means to leave. Salir is not reflexive. It does not need to be. It is not used in that way. Irse is very colloquial. It's a very fast way to indicate things are moving along, that it's happening kind of fast. And irse you hear a lot in conversations. It's just a really common verb. You know, a lot of times we have synonyms to, you know, we say, I'm leaving the house, I'm getting out of the house, I'm taking off from the house. They have
Okay.
different verbs to say the same idea, but me voy does give it that idea of, well, things are moving along at a pretty good clip here.
Okay.
Whereas salir doesn't really have that feel.
One of the other things we talked about was the video we looked at that had the two ladies in it talking about ir and irse. And they emphasized either one was correct to use. One just shows more enthusiasm than the other.
It can't, that right. So yes, more enthusiasm, that is a good way to put it, is giving more punch, right?
Mhm.
Ah, me voy.
Yeah.
Ah, me voy. Yeah, you know, and we do that with our voice too, but me voy. I'm getting out, I'm taking off. You know, somebody had a nice lunch with you, you had lunch with your friends someplace, and everybody's sitting around kind of just talking, killing time, but you know, you're looking, it's like, gotta get it. Me voy. I'm taking off. And that's it. You know, it's a real nice, it's the period, boom. The period or the exclamation point to the end of your expression, right? You're just ending it right there. Eso es perfecto. Okay, Nora.
Could you type up on the shared screen just the simplest way to answer each of those, maybe?
Sure. we
What
can
made
take
me
a look
think of
at
it was
that.
when they discussed the answer to the first one, I'm not sure where to put the day in there.
Okay, bien.
If I'm leaving at 8 in the morning, where do I
yeah.
put the day?
Okay. And I need to make this bigger here, so it'll be easier for people to look at. And the two videos, the one you had for homework, emphasize more of the when and the enthusiastic and the immediacy part. And the second one I showed you today in class emphasized more the leaving from a place, okay, getting out of a place, and
Right.
emphasize more putting de in. You know, there are always little nuances here and there. So one video shows you one aspect of irse, and the one you saw in class today emphasized a little more of that aspect of de, when you're talking about where's my starting point and now I'm getting out, okay, using de. So let's take a look at some of these and give some possible answers. We'll type this in, everybody can see it. Pueden ver, ¿sí? Pueden
Yeah,
ver.
sí.
Bien, okay, vale. Talking about leaving your own. ¿Cuándo te vas? Me voy. You can just say, I'm getting out of here. Me voy de aquí. Me voy de aquí ahora mismo. Ahora
Okay.
mismo. Ahora mismo. Ahora, now, mismo, the same. Now the same. That means right now, right now. Ahora
Okay.
mismo, ahora mismo. Okay. Me voy de aquí ahora mismo. And now I'm telling both. I'm telling when, and I'm telling where I'm leaving from. Here. De aquí.
Okay.
Me voy de aquí. Talking about where, what a person, one person leaving. ¿Quién se va? Muy temprano. Okay. Por ejemplo, mi hija se va muy temprano. Mi hija se va muy temprano. Mi hija se va, if we want to put in a place, de casa muy temprano.
Okay.
Okay, vale. Aquí, maybe I want to talk about more than one person in this next example. And we want to talk about not temprano, but tarde, late, okay? Por ejemplo, mi esposo y mi hijo se van muy tarde. Se van muy tarde, se van muy tarde, se van muy tarde a las 9.
Mhm.
Se van a las 9, cama, muy tarde.
Mhm.
Se van a las 9. muy tarde. You know, you can mix up how you combine those because people do that in real life. Se va muy tarde, a las 9. ¿Vale? Sí, ¿quieren ustedes ir al parque? Ah, no queremos ir al parque. Va a llover. It's going to
Rain.
rain. Va a llover.
Okay.
No queremos ir al parque. Va a llover. Va a
Thank-
llover. Bien.
Yeah.
AC has stopped working and you say, let's get out of here. Ah, nos vamos. Nos vamos a tomar una cerveza en el bar. ¿Sí? La casa es como un horno. House is like an oven.
Oven.
Nos vamos or if I want to mention a destination, like we can't stay here overnight. Oh, AC guy can't come till tomorrow. You gotta be kidding me. But that is what happens, right? Vamos a un hotel. Now I'm mentioning the place. Vamos a un hotel. When I mention my destination, very likely vamos a un hotel. Oh, vamos a quedarnos en un hotel. We're going to stay at a hotel, not where our destination is, but what it is we're going to do. Future, very, very near future, because we can't stay in this house. Vamos a quedarnos en un hotel.
Mhm.
Bien? Vale.
Sí.
Bien? Okay, I'm going to leave those up.
Thanks.
Go back and look at it, and you can grab that file and save it on your machine. Bueno, excelente. Okay, so ir en irse, a little less of a mystery, un poquito
Sí.
mejor.
Sí.
And just keep in mind, you will hear it and you will read it a lot. And a lot of times it is going to be indicating immediacy. Something is happening pretty fast or suddenly, right? Just go with the flow with it. It is super, super useful. And people do use this all the time. I had a student who told me, he was in a park with somebody and they were looking at the little birds. You know how little birds will come in a light and then they take off in a big flock. Oh, las pájaros se fueron. They took off. The birds just left because they all flew up together. Se fueron. They took off. They left. Which brings us to the idea of left of past tense, okay? And I had given you a little video because the hump we're going to need to out and kind of get over is that really, sadly, there are these two tenses that both mean the past, but we use them in different situations. So this little video, he does a fairly good job of telling you what's the difference between preterite and imperfect. And what I like to tell people is think of preterite as it's an event, it's over. But our English minds want to say, well, it's past, of course it's over. Yes, but if I want to say, wow, the sky was gray all morning, the sky being gray was not an event. Right? The sky was, that didn't happen. If it happened, it's preterite. If it was a certain way, if it looked a certain way, it's a description. It'll be the other past, that imperfecto, imperfect. But he did a good job here showing that preterite we use when we say an action started. So, por ejemplo, for example, empezó a llover, it began to rain. Empezó a llover. It began to rain. It's talking about the start of an action. And if it began to rain, that's an event. An event. It started to rain. That's an event, right? If we want to talk about when something finished. Mis empleados acabaron el proyecto. My employees, they finished the project. Boom, that's it. So if we've got the starting point and we want to talk about that in the past, pretérito. End point, pretérito. If you want to say you did something for 5 years, it's 5 years. It's not 6 years. It's not 8 years. It's 5 years. It fits into a nice little box of time. Okay. A little time capsule of a 5-year period. So if we name a specific length of time, duration of time, we use pretérito. Okay, so an example of that would be, por ejemplo, Donald Trump fue presidente por 4 años, right? A typical 4-year period. And we're talking about 4 years. So it's got a beginning and an end. Okay. Also, if we talk about a series of actions, and sometimes this is described as a sequence of actions. So in other words, if you're saying, oh, I woke up, I got out of bed, I went to the bathroom, I walked into the kitchen, I made a cup of coffee. You did those things all one after the other. So when we express ideas like that, it is pretérito. But the easiest thing, what we want to give you is like a 50-50 choice. And if it's too hard for you to memorize start of an action, finished an action, duration of time, 1, 2, 3, all these things in a row, think of it this way. Was it an event and it's over? If it happened and it's over, it's preterite. So what, on the other hand, is the imperfecto? Imperfecto, as you can see from what he wrote on the screen there, it describes physical or mental states. But what you can cut that down to is 50-50, pretérito, event, happened. Here's the other side of the 50-50, description, descriptions in the past. He was 10 years old is a description of his age at that time. He was 10 years old. It's imperfecto. He was 10 years old. Is that an event? Did it happen? No, he was in the state. Any description in the past is this other tense of imperfecto. Okay, and it is imperfect because a description doesn't really have a set starting point and a set end point. It just was. The sky was blue. Wow, we drove up to the Mogollon Rim and wow, the road was curvy. The forests were abundant. You're just describing how something looked, how it felt. I was really happy. I was so happy spending time up there. You're just describing how you felt. Imperfecto is for all of that. Now, one thing they like to use, I think he put this in, yes, well, setting the scene, that's describing. Anytime you want to say somebody used to do something, I used to climb trees when I was a little kid. That's imperfecto because you did it a bunch of times and we don't really know how many times, like just a lot. Okay, so used to do it, see, bucks that idea of duration of time. Somebody was president for 4 years is a specific 4-year period of time. But used to climb trees when you were a kid. That happened, I don't know how many times. You didn't count them, just a lot. So when you have repeated actions that happen over and over and over and over again, used to, it's imperfecto. When you say somebody was doing something, was doing, if the idea in your English head is was doing, it's imperfecto. They were dancing when the lights went out. Bailaban, they were dancing. They were dancing when the lights were on, and boom, the lights went out. Lights went out. That was an event, but they were dancing that whole time. So this is an idea that takes a long time to get used to. It helps to see some stories next week. During class, we're going to see some stories, but I'm probably not going to send you off to do a lot of stories. You'll do some limited use with that for homework, because sometimes you need some hand holding to walk through that, which is fine. What we are going to take a look at is what happens to some typical verbs that you may use a lot. Okay, so we're going to do the big picture of, I'm not asking you go conjugate all these verbs yet. We want you to simply recognize the past tenses. So recognition wise, this is what pretérito, event. It happened, it happened, it happened. This is what they will look like, right? Escuchar, listen to, will look like, sound like escuché, escuchaste, escuchó. He listened, she listened. Escuchamos, it'll be exactly like it is in present. No difference whatsoever. And escucharon, right? For an ER and IR verb, like ver, to see, it'll be vi, viste, vio, vimos, vieron. Those will all be event driven. So that first part of the verb, you will generally hear with a different ending is all, right? Escuchar, you're just going to hear the escuch part, right? Ver is not as helpful. So let's say it's vivir, right? I lived in some place for 11 years, say, vivi, you'll still hear the viv of vivir. You'll just have different endings, right? See, okay. And if you're talking about not an event, but a description or a used to or a was doing, it'll be aba endings for AR verbs, or ia endings for ER and IR verbs. ER and IR verbs in the past share forms very, very consistently. So that same idea of using escuchar will become escuchaba. I was listening, or I used to listen to. Escuchabas, escuchaba, escuchábamos, escuchaban. Just get used to the rhythm. It's an aba. Most people like that aba. It's got a funny sound. And, you know, trabajar will sound really weird. Trabajaba. Yeah. People, 15-year-olds love that verb. Trabajaba. Yeah. Trabajabas, trabajábamos. Yeah. Trabajaban. And ER and IR verbs will share ia endings, right? So vivir would become vivía. I used to live. Vivías. Vivía, vivíamos, vivían. If I'm not talking about how long they used to live, if I talk about the 3 bears, they lived in the forest. I don't know how long they lived in the forest. They were just there. It's just describing where they were. They lived in the forest is not an event that was like over, boom. Oh no, they used to live there. So los osos, the bears, los 3 osos, the 3 bears, los 3 osos vivían en el bosque. They used to live in the forest. So that's what it will look like. Let's take a look at some verbs you use a lot. And we're going to start with the verbs you learn like in your first weeks of Spanish. We're going to look at haber, ser, estar, tener, ir. We're going to look at those real briefly, just so you know what they look like. And I'm going to send you this link. You're going to notice that sometimes certain verbs are used more in one of those past tenses than the other. Sometimes. And I'll kind of tell you when. Haber. Haber is the verb that I comes from. And this is that one that you only use it one way and not in a bunch of forms. Yeah. To say there is or there are, you only use this one way. And it's always I for right now, right? Hay muchos estudiantes aquí. There are many students here. But if I want to say there were many students, is that an event?
No.
No. There were a bunch of students. Wow, there were tons of cars on the highway. There were lots of bugs out last night. It's not an event. You're just saying this is what it was like, right? So you're going to usually hear haber in imperfecto. You will hardly ever hear haber in pretérito, because hardly ever does it indicate an event. Sometimes it does, but not frequently. Haber is usually in the past used in imperfecto. So here's what it's going to look like. We take the ER off of haber and it becomes había. And that's the only form you're going to need. Había. There was. Había. Había. Okay. You use it to describe. Había mucha gente. There were a lot of people. Había muchos carros. There were lots of cars. Había muchos insectos. There were lots of insects. And I'll actually put that example in on this slide. Hubo is the pretérito, but it's not frequent because it talks about an event, like there was an accident. Now that is an event. There were bugs. The bugs were not events, but there was an accident. That was an event. Hubo un accidente. There was a fire. That's an event. Hubo un incendio. Okay. And you can tell from the meaning, that's a difference, right? There was a party. That's an event. But the bugs were not an event. They were little beings just hanging out there, right? So, haber, you're generally going to hear it as había, and I'll put an example in there for you. Ser, you might hear either way. I have a star, star, star by the imperfecto because I think you're going to use that more. Ser, as it is very irregular in presente, it is very irregular in imperfecto. So the forms for ser in to say it was, or he was, or I was, or we were is going to be these forms on the right, a la derecha. Era, era, eras, era. We get the same form for yo in imperfecto and the same form for third person, singular. Okay, so nice thing about imperfecto, you have one less conjugation to know because yo and el usted share the same form. So was or were becomes era, eras, era, éramos, erais, eran. I want to say she was pretty. She was tall. He was smart. Those are all descriptions. I think you'll wind up using that more. You can have ser en pretérito. You can. I think you will hear it at your point in development a little bit less, but this is what it looks like. And boy, is that irregular. Where does that F come from? There is no F in ser. That is weird. Fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fuisteis, fueron. We're just going to say if somebody was, let's say somebody changed professions, you know, they were an accountant, but now they're a manager. fue contador. He was an accountant. Ahora es gerente. Now he's a manager. You might hear that. But I think you're going to hear the one with the stars more. So when you see the stars, the asterisks, probably you're going to be using that form a little more. Okay? Don't feel you have to memorize all these. Just get familiar with them. Estar. Here are all the wonderful forms of estar. Again, star, star, star. I think you're going to hear estar more in imperfecto, because again, it's going to be more description. You know, you're going to be talking about things like weather or descriptions or what something looked like. And it's going to be estaba, estabas, estaba, estábamos, estaban. Descriptions and locations, right? You know, the house was on the corner. Yeah. Locations, that works. There is a preterite for estar. It's used when you're giving a time limit. So I think you'll hear it less often. It's also super irregular. So it will not look like the charts I showed you in the yellow pages of the Google slides, right? It becomes an estuve, estuviste. Where does that V come from? I don't know. It's super weird. Preterite has a lot of weird, irregular endings. So kind of ignore that estuve part at the bottom. Just know that it's there because estar can be preterite. Tener, you're going to get a star, star, star by imperfecto because quite a lot we use this in imperfecto. And it's very regular. Tenía, tenías, tenía, teníamos, teníais, tenían. Somebody had something. He had a dog. That's really a description. Is that an event? No. If I want to say he got a dog for his birthday, then that would become the pretérito, which again has this weird V thing in it. Tener in pretérito is very irregular in form and it changes in meaning. If you want to say somebody had something, you want the asterisk. They had something because they owned it. You don't know how long. But if you want to say he got a puppy for his birthday, that's an event. So tener, if you use it as preterite, really changes in meaning to this. Or maybe this, received. Pretty specific and over. So I would say, don't worry about tener forms in pretérito. Maybe start to get familiar with these tener forms in imperfecto. Tenía, tenía, because those are things you're going to hear and use more. And the last one I'm going to look at is ir. Ir in, wow, this one's a hard call. You'll probably hear ir more in preterite because usually somebody went somewhere and that's an event. He went to the store, he went to school, he went down the street. Went is preterite. It's an event. It happened and it was over. And look how weird ir is in preterite. Fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos. Yeah, fuimos, because I skipped my fuiste. Okay. Here is another very, very sad little corollary to add. Oops, I got my fingers on the wrong keys. Ser and ir share preterite endings. Ser conjugations in preterite are exactly the same as ir conjugations in preterite. That's icky, but it is what they do. So the first question is always, how do you know? Well, if somebody says, fui al supermercado, they shouldn't mean I was to the supermarket. They mean I went. Fui maestra en el colegio. I was a teacher at the high school and now that's over with. Fui, I was in that position and I'm indicating it's an over with thing, but fui al colegio, I went to the high school. It can't mean I was to the high school. It has to, fui there, it must mean I went to. So you know what? You're going to hear this fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos. I'm sorry. Now I have this wrong. What am I thinking? Fueron. I've got to make a correction here. That's a bad error. Fueron. You're going to hear those starred things more. You're going to hear ir in preterite more. And here's what they will look like in imperfecto. We'll talk about why we need that later. But just get to know, if you hear one of these fui words, it's an event and it's ir and it's went. Okay, vale? I'm going to give you a web page that'll like give you some short snippets so you can kind of see, but I want it to be like super manageable, not a super long storytelling event. Okay. So I'll ask you to get familiar with those forms. As a matter of fact, I think I will create a little short story for you that will only use those forms you see in that screen to make it easy to tell a very short amount of information in the past using those verbs. There's one more verb we're going to use. I'm going to send you some prompts to prep for next week. Next week is our last class of summer, and then we've got a hiatus for a bit. We're going to take one more reflexive verb. We have parecerse and irse this week. Next week, we're going to take the verb ver. Ver means to see or maybe watch a program, right? Sometimes. And when we make ver reflexive, it means to look a certain way. And I'm going to set up some slides for you to see the examples. So, for example, if somebody wants to say to you, wow, you look elegant. They mean you look super wow. You know, somebody sees you come into a Christmas party, you look really elegant. They're going to use ver as a reflexive. The classic question of the wife to the husband, do I look fat in this dress? That's verse, that's verse, that's verse. Verse means to see yourself, sort of, but yeah. Te ves muy elegante. You look really elegant. Me veo muy gorda. Do I look fat? Yeah. So I'll send you some prompts to use when you come into conversation. You can prep ahead of time, but it'll be focusing on verse. Verse, which people use a lot. You know, they may say, wow, you look this way, you look that way. Somebody feels really crummy one day and they say, wow, I look really old today. Now I got the bags under my eyes, all that stuff, right? We all talk about things like that. So you'll get some prompts to use verse, not in preterite, just plain old present tense, okay, in a conversational way. ¿Está bien?
Está bien.
Fantástico, fantástico. Entonces, nos vemos. We'll see each other. That's the other way of using
Me
ver.
voy.
Sí. Bien, bien, bien. Ok. Vale, magnífico. Entonces, nos vemos el 16 de agosto. We'll see you all on the 16th. If you've got any questions in between, send it out to me via email and we're all good to go. ¿Sí? Que tengan una semana fantástica. Everybody have a really super week.